guys. So I did another fine art piece, and again, I did not screen record this one, but it was intentional this time. This piece, I didn't know if it was going to come together the way I wanted it to, so I figured I'd go ahead and try and piece it together, and if it worked out, then I'd walk through it layer by layer like I've done in the past. So let me show you the final piece real quick. So this is the final image, and I'm going to show you how I put this together. So the first image I started with was this one, and basically where I went was there was a little area not far from my house where the water has kind of receded because we haven't had a lot of rain, and so I hiked off trail to try and get down to this area, and tried to find places where this receded area looked like cliff faces, because I've had this idea in my head for a while. I just hadn't found the right spot for the cliff face idea, and I thought this image looked like something I could work with, so I started here. And the first thing I did was, if you look right here, what you'll see is I pulled everything down. I wanted to try and make that look like a more prominent and high cliff face. So I just used the liquify tool and stretched everything down. The next thing I did was I added a picture of myself. This is something I shot on a different day at the lake at a different location, and so I photoshopped this picture in using a layer mask, and then obviously I used a curves and levels layer to make the lighting on me match the lighting of the area of the landscape image that I'm using. I wanted to kind of create water all around this quote-unquote cliff face, so I took a couple of images of water that I had, and I can show you those here. So one of the water images was this one. So I just used this whole image and masked off the parts I didn't need, and then I did the same thing with, I think it was this one. No, it was that one. So let me show you what I did here. So that first water piece I photoshopped in here with a layer mask, and the second one I did was this one. So when you put the two layer masks together, it kind of pieces around the cliff area pretty well. One of the things I did to try and make this more believable is some of these branches that are coming across. I made sure I masked them off as well so that they're in the foreground. Once I got that where I liked it, I added in, back to these pictures from the lake. There are tree stumps in our lake. So these little images of, I think it was this little spot right here, I actually pulled out and masked off and photoshopped into two spots in this image. Okay, so that was how I created this. Now what I always do is I save this as a layered PSD file, and then I open it as a JPEG so that I can do my retouching. So this is what we were just looking at, flattened. And the first thing I did was run my basic Photoshop action, which tends to warm and brighten up the whole image. Okay, so once we had that done, the next thing I did, I don't even know what this is. Okay, so this was a step I did towards the end, but I'm going to show it to you now. So what I did was I cut myself out onto my own layer, and if you look closely, it's going to sound weird, but I actually softened the sharpness of myself, and there's a reason I did this. So if you look at my feet down here, if I leave it alone where it's the fully sharpened version of myself, I am crisper than where I'm standing, which is not realistic. So in order to keep that feeling believable, I needed to make myself less crisp. So I did that by making a copy of myself and using a Gaussian blur. And I did a very, very subtle Gaussian blur. I think it was like 0.5 or 0.6, just so it's not quite so sharp. After that, you guys know how much I love vignettes using curve layers. So the first one I did is a directional layer mask. You've seen me do these a lot. And then I did a second one, which you can see here. After that, I did a standard vignette, which was very subtle, but the main reason I did it was for down here. So if you watch down here when I turn it on, you can see it darken up down here. And then I did 2 more directional light layers curves. So here's the first one. You can see that one is much more pointed than the previous ones. And then this one actually is to brighten up the spotlight on me. So that's what I did there. Now, I wanted the sky to be a little more of a statement, a little more ominous. So I pulled in a previous sky that I had photographed. And to make this a little easier for myself, I changed the blend mode to hard light. And what this did was it allowed like the trees and things to see through the layer, so I didn't have to like do a lot of fine tuning of the mask. I just masked off the areas where it was really problematic, especially on my face and the cliff and water where it would have been black down here. But other than that, I just kind of let it play through the trees and just darken things down back here. I also added a little more light to my face. I did my warm butternut vignette, and I finished it with a matte retouching finish. And that is completely, from start to finish, how I put this image together. It's not exactly what I had in mind, but I'm still happy with the result considering what I was working with and the fact that I've never really pieced something together quite like this before. Working with water is a little bit new to me, especially in this scenario where I was making it come up to like a shoreline. So yeah, I hope you guys thought that was fun and interesting. If you have questions or comments, please leave them below. If there's anything you'd like me to cover in the future, I'd love to hear about it. And as always, you can find more about me and my work at greentreemediaonline.com. Thanks guys, see you next time.